Is this the worst council accommodation in the West Midlands?
There's people jumping off the blocks, people being thrown off the blocks, setting fires to the blocks, as you can see.
Dreadful, really, and they're trying to charge us more rent here than most other properties that's out there for a one-bedroom.
This is Holbrook Tower, built in 1968. Next year, the 19-storey block in Bromford will be demolished. Quite simply, Birmingham City Council can't afford to refurbish it, and it's not fit for purpose. So why, say tenants, is it taking so long to move them out?
It's slowly deteriorated as we found out that the block's coming down.
On the third floor, we found Michael King, struggling to keep the flat warm for his pregnant fiancée. He told me he'd been waiting months to discover when and where they'll be moved.
We've had people at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning come hammering the door drunk because they've got the wrong address and stuff. Do you know what I mean? We want out, we've got to get out. Do you know what I mean? It's just a long process, basically.
The City Council told us security costs for Holbrook Tower are £57,000 a year. But when we filmed here, the main security door wasn't working. Windows were smashed and lighting was out. Some tenants had even brought in their own security measures.
I've been speaking to one family who didn't want to go on camera. They told me that conditions were extremely cramped, with 6 of them living in a single flat and the adults having to sleep in the living room.
Removal vans are now a common sight. Proof, says the City Council, that tenants are being relocated to better accommodation.
We haven't been as quick in dealing with these issues as we can. Say, I've been a councillor for 20 years. I saw a master plan almost as soon as I was elected. I understand why the council is reluctant to invest in those blocks because they are coming down. But I think we have to do everything possible to make sure that while the properties are being emptied, the people that remain in there do feel as secure as possible.
There are plenty of examples of good quality housing on the Bromford estate, so why is Holbrook Tower significant? Well, it's one of 8 decaying tower blocks being demolished by Birmingham City Council as part of a £26 million programme. Hundreds of people are being uprooted in one of the biggest movements of tenants for half a century. Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands Today, Bromford in Birmingham.
Last year, there were nearly 18,000 people waiting for social housing in Birmingham. The City Council says it'll build 2,000 new properties over the next 5 years. Meanwhile, hundreds of existing tenants are being relocated from soon-to-be demolished tower blocks. All this week, we're hearing stories from Storeys. Ben Godfrey has been to Bromford, where the mass movement of tenants is steeped in history.
In the shadow of the M6, school children are sprucing up their estate, taking pride in their surroundings.
We're going to clean this whole wasteland to make it a nice clean place. We're going to do painting. It's about the helping people.
There used to be 4 tower blocks on this wasteland near Bromford, but they were pulled down for safety reasons. They were sinking into waterlogged land. High-rise demolitions look pretty spectacular, but they've frustrated many here who want a greater say over local development.
You just wonder about all the plans and developments for the tower blocks kind of come down. You know, there is a concern locally about what's going to happen, what's the future.
The future isn't yet clear for the hundreds of people who'll leave these 2 high-rises before the demolition teams move in. But it's likely they'll leave an estate which is 50 years old this year.
Displacement today is in some ways paralleling what happened in the 1950s and 60s when people were taken out of their communities and displaced into, or dispersed around the city into a variety of different estates. Communities were sometimes deliberately broken up. Now the problem isn't, deliberate intent, it's simply not having enough resources to make sure a community can be rehoused together.
The real work didn't begin until after the Second World War, when the corporation took over vast areas of tunnel backs, ramshackle factories and dilapidated terraces to start the miracle of building a new city from the ruins of the old.
Many families were moved to tower blocks from the so-called slums of Birmingham in the 1950s and 60s, when living conditions deteriorated around the city centre. 3 generations of Claire McLean's family lived here in Bromford, in Holbrook Tower.
My mum lived in Aston and she said she moved down in Bromford in '67 and she said the flats were luxury. She said where she come from they didn't have toilets inside or even a bath. She had to have a tin bath. So Mum said to her, Bromford, then the flats were luxury. She couldn't believe her luck when she first moved in. My son was born in the block of flats as well, so to me it holds a lot of good memories.
On this land, legendary jockey Lester Piggott once rode winners. Bromford Bridge Racecourse opened in 1894, even staging cross-country championships. In 1965, the horses bolted and the homes arrived. So 50 years on and Bromford's landscape is changing once again. And now, as then, people are just as intent on preserving those memories of living here. Future local housing might look something like this. Neighbouring Castle Vale is seen by some as the model to follow. And the City Council has sought to reassure people that new generations of tenants will continue to live on the Bromford estate, with plans to replace these two tower blocks with modern family homes. Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
And on tomorrow's programme, we'll meet some of the young people in Bromford who are succeeding in finding work in one of the UK's worst areas for youth unemployment. Youth unemployment in the West Midlands is falling, but remains higher than the UK average. There's concern that the cost of transport to attend job interviews or training is deterring young people from finding work. As part of our series of Stories from Stories, Ben Godfrey has been to meet a 22-year-old from Bromford who believes he has the answer.
When I ride my bike, it's a really exhilarating thing to just be able to go as fast as I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. When I was younger, they were just something to ride around and then just fun, but now they've become my job.
Stuart Boyle was unemployed for a year and a half, but the 22-year-old's finally found work in Bromford, and it's all about the bicycle.
We do a recycling scheme, which we call upcycling, where we take donations and old bikes that would have been scrap, and we repair them and then sell them on at the shop at affordable prices.
He helps set up Gear Up on Bromford Drive. He's the mechanic, the salesman, the entrepreneur, and no longer on the dole.
The problem was that I was on the job centre for a while and slowly began to lose motivation and found it was a lot easier to just be on the job centre, get myself some benefits and not actually look for work. And now I'm in full-time employment and the wage is kind of solely dependent on how well the business does.
At the start of this year, 6% of the working age population in Hodge Hill were claiming out-of-work benefits, the second highest rate in the country. Jobs for young people are a huge work in progress. Why do you think young people here on the Bromford are finding it so difficult to find work? There is kind of an attitude of it's not worth bothering because we've been given a bad hand, so to speak, and we can't do nothing with that. And so a lot of the young people tend to carry these kind of feelings as they grow up, and they don't bother in school. They struggle at school, they finish school, they won't bother with college, and they won't bother with trying to find a job. Stuart, though, has a possible solution. If everybody on the scheme was to get a bike as part of the job seekers allowance thing, it allows them to travel about without the costs of bus tickets and taxes and things, and hopefully it would help a lot of people get into work and get to interviews where they otherwise would have struggled. In the shadow of the two tower blocks, Stuart's reputation is growing. He's been chosen to support a new scheme in Birmingham, giving out free bikes to people struggling to afford transport costs. And he's training young people. Reese Kerr is still at school and hoping to improve his prospects.
I was hanging around with the wrong people and everything outside of school. It's like I can lead sessions with Stuart and then help young people like what have been in my situation and lead them to like a better route in life.
Stuart Boyle hopes others his age in Bromford, youngsters on this estate who'll think they'll never find work or training, can now afford to think again. Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
And tomorrow, with more stories from Stories, we'll see how the Bromford community is helping to feed those who are struggling to afford a meal. And we'll meet the dietitians working to reduce cases of rickets in young children.
A sharp rise in cases of rickets in Birmingham, with hospital admissions for children tripling in just 5 years. The condition affects bone development and is caused by a lack of vitamin D. There's concern that poverty is resulting in dangerously poor diets. Well, all this week we've brought you stories from the Bromford estate in northeast Birmingham. Health experts and the community are working together on the estate to improve public health, as Ben Godfrey reports.
At a children's centre in Bromford, there's an important delivery. These community dietitians are on a mission.
So there's the women's vitamins, which are for women from the start of pregnancy.
Across the city, free vitamins are being given to parents to help prevent children from developing rickets, a condition caused by a lack of vitamin D and calcium.
We would need to be outside most days a week with our arms, the forearms and faces exposed between the hours of 11 and 3 a couple of times a week to get enough vitamin D. Well, I'm not, and I'm sure you're not.
In Birmingham in 2009, 71 children admitted to hospital were diagnosed with rickets or vitamin D deficiency. Last year, there were 208 admissions. That's an increase of 193% over 5 years. Rickets, which can lead to bone deformity, was considered a disease of the past, but it's back. Local GPs recognise they need to raise more awareness of the need for sunlight and a healthy diet.
Well, we are actually looking out for it more than perhaps we did 5-10 years ago. I certainly do think we're seeing a lot more of it, and I think this is partly to do with doctors being more knowledgeable about the particular condition.
Sunlight helps the skin produce vitamin D, but a healthy diet is also crucial. Here on the Bromford estate, residents have been attending cookery classes and community lunches to enjoy free, healthy food.
I come round here and it helps me tremendously.
I know I could come down there and they'd help me out with food.
And these get-togethers at the hub have helped people feel less isolated.
We often give out food parcels to people who've got nothing in the cupboard, but actually more important than that, we wanted people to feel like they could come to places where they were treated as human beings, where they could come and cook together and eat together.
Bromford sits within Hodge Hill, an area with historically high levels of deprivation. An area, say health experts, where rickets and obesity could flourish without better understanding of these conditions. Ben Godfrey, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
All this week we've brought you stories from the Bromford estate in northeast Birmingham. Hundreds of housing tenants are preparing to leave 2 decaying tower blocks due for demolition. Well, in the last in our series, Ben Godfrey has been back to meet those finally moving out.
On Monday we heard Michael King's story, living on the 3rd floor of Holbrook Tower in Bromford with his pregnant fiancée Yvette, living in cold, damp conditions, fearing for their security.
It's slowly deteriorated as we found out that the block's coming down. It's like they don't want to put any effort into it because it's coming down. So that's basically, it's slowly getting worse. This is the hallway. It's big, airy, it's really warm.
They thought it would never happen, but on Tuesday, finally, the move they'd been waiting 6 months for. They've been relocated to a new build council house 3 miles away in Perry Common.
The fresh start, a complete fresh start for me, my partner and the baby. Do you know what I mean? It's a whole new life for us, and it's going to be amazing, absolutely amazing.
Birmingham has an acute housing shortage, and a rain-soaked Perry Common is a far cry from sunny Cannes in France, where the City Council announced this week plans for 80,000 new homes, just like these ones, on 40 brownfield sites. Today I was told that just 18 tenants have been moved from Holbrook Tower, so another 100, including Pauline Badams, are waiting for the removal teams.
The City Council have been extremely inflexible with their viewing appointments, and as I work full time, it's not always possible for me to attend when they say to me, this time, Thursday, 11:30.
Birmingham City Council says some properties are on construction sites, so can't be visited out of office hours. How do you feel for those people that haven't moved yet?
Well, they want to get themselves into gear and do it because it's all, the onus is on them.
Holbrook is expected to be demolished in the autumn, with neighbouring Warstone next year. They've towered over northeast Birmingham for 5 decades, with social history in each story. Once seen as the height of luxury, but now just 20 forgotten floors of concrete.
Well, the people of Bromford have been given £1 million of lottery funding to improve their estate over the next 10 years, and Ben Godfrey is on the estate for us. Ben, it's a lot of money. Where's it going to be spent?
Well, it is a lot of money, but it's to spend over 10 years actually. So some say, considering the issues we've talked about, it's dropping the ocean. This is the hub at the centre of Bromford, where a lot of the people featured here have been on some of the films we've seen this week. They're deciding how to spend some of this big local lottery money. Let's talk to Paul Wright, a community worker here. Paul, lots of issues raised this week. Where are you spending some of this lottery money?
I mean, the money's been spent on things like sports projects, environmental projects, community celebrations. It's kind of, I mean, and the money's great and it helps us to do stuff. But the most important thing is it's about local people. And, you know, we're all local people here. We're all passionate about this place. We all love this place. We all live here, and it's about local people trying to make this place better for everybody.
We've talked about housing, employment, social issues. Which is the one that's most pressing, do you think?
I think they're all issues that are here. We're not, you know, they're all prevalent. But the key thing is it's about building on people's talents and skills and giving people opportunities, and that's what we're about.
A quick word over here with a resident of 9 years, Ola from Nigeria. Many nationalities living on the Bromford, Ola. How are you bringing them together?
Yeah, I've done to bring them together by organising events. We've done Nigeria Independence Day quite about 3 years now, and then we've been doing Black History Month, and people have been coming together, share their culture, and they share food.
Lovely. People here have been keen to change a reputation of Bromford that some see as notorious, and they want to create a lasting legacy for this estate on its 50th anniversary.
OK, Ben Godfrey, thank you.